And I'm thrilled to have Dr. Jody Carrington with us here today, who, if you haven't watched one of her lives at 8 a.m. in the morning, if you want to start your day with some good laughs and some good truth to start your day off, then man, you gotta check it out. But Dr. Jody, I'm so thrilled you're here. Thanks for coming, and all your work around connection. If there's ever time, we need it right now. So welcome and take it away. And you just got to unmute.
Hey, listen, I'm so excited to be here. I've never been muted in my life, so that was like a new thing for me there. I'm glad we started in that way. You're in my kitchen this morning. The babies are on the iPad somewhere, losing their mind. I'm only a half a coffee in, so I'm going to do my very friggin' best to get this together. Wayne, that was phenomenal. When I popped on here this morning, Connie was like, where were you? I thought you were, I was like, oh, I thought it was 9:45. Anyway, we're here. I just, you know what's so great is that I do a live every morning during the Corona crisis, because I think the only thing we need to figure out now is how we stay connected in this massive time of disconnect. And so I had my son on this morning talking about anxiety. So my son is 9, and he started to talk about anxiety, or got on and talked about anxiety this morning. And so we were just watching that back together. And my husband was like, don't you have to, are you doing this great thing with Connie? I was like, oh, yes, I am. So here we are this morning. I am so excited to be here with you. You know, Connie's amazing. This new book of hers, I cannot wait to read it, and I hope you all get it too. There's just not enough of this in the world. So I don't even have slides. I'm just going to chat like we're in the kitchen together this morning. So Wayne, your slides were amazing. So this is not going to be as good. Get Wayne's slides and I'll just say all the same things he did. So I want to leave you. I really want to tell you 3 things before we, in our 15 minutes this morning. I want to talk to you a little bit about emotional regulation. So Wayne spoke about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we stay connected in the middle of a friggin' pandemic. So I want to leave you 2 things that I want you to think about over the next little bit, because my biggest concern right now about, how we parent through a pandemic is really about how we stay connected when everybody is feeling chippy. And what's going to happen in this time of emotional dysregulation is, like, when things are unclear, we get emotionally dysregulated, we get chippy, we get irritable, we get all of those things. And so right now, if your kids aren't chippy, I don't know what you're doing. You need a medal or something. If you are not prepared to get divorced in the next 3 seconds, I don't know what's going on. Like, how are you doing it? We'd all like to know. Because when we're in the middle of such significant changes, I think everything comes into question. Are we going to be okay? What's happening with our finances? And our babies feel it so significantly much. I mean, their routine has been put on its head. And so if there's a few things I think that I really want you to think about is, number 1, the importance of feeling this. This is unprecedented. I can't tell you how many times it's unprecedented, how many times I've said unprecedented in the last friggin' 6 weeks, because nobody has a script for this. And we're wired to do hard things, but we do those hard things so much better when we stay connected. But the hard part about it is that when we get scared, we disconnect, we armor up, we step into things and say, and our kids are the number 1, I think, feeler of that right now. And so what we want to do when people get dysregulated or disconnected is we want to fix it. We want to say, okay, at least, you know what? We're safe here. At least we're not on the front lines. At least, don't worry about your hockey provincials. At least we're The one thing I want to tell you, first of all, out of the gate, is we have to hold space for how big this emotion is. I don't even think we're close to wanting to fix it, although we'll be inclined to want to do that. We have to hold space for that deal right now. And so you need to, Dan Siegel says this, you need to name it to tame it. And I want you to be very clear that perception is a function of experience. And so if it matters to you, it matters. If it matters to them, it matters. And so for a 7-year-old, not being with their friends is huge right now. For your 15-year-old who doesn't get to do his hockey provincials and he worked his bum off all year to get to those hockey provincials, this is devastating. The fact that they can't date, the fact that they can't hang out with their friends for, this temporary time is huge. If your neighbor is a physician and he's on the front lines, what it matters to him, I mean, all of those things are inconsequential. He's just trying to decide who gets a vet tomorrow. And that perception is a function of experience. All of those things matter equally. If you go on live every morning and you can't get your extensions replaced and you got roots the size of a small village, if it matters to you, it matters. This is life. This is devastating for me. And unless I hold space for that, I got to name it to tame it. We try to, I think, justify whether we have a right to feel based on how other people's are feeling. And comparison is the thief of all joy. So I want you to be very careful about holding space for everybody's emotion in this process. Your 7-year-old, the emotion matters. If it matters to you, it matters. Okay. So perception is a function of experience. So holding that space, I think, is what's really critically important. The other thing around, if you own a kid or teach a kid, or love a kid, or you're walking some kid home, no matter how old they are, what's really important in this process is something called emotional regulation. And I want to just sort of jump off on what Dr. Wayne was talking about, because, you know, he spoke a lot about the prefrontal cortex. Dan Siegel's take on the lid flip is the one thing that changed my life. So I'm a child psychologist by training. I spent 10 years on the Locke Psychiatric Inpatient Unit at the Alberta Children's Hospital. And I still continue to this day to not be a huge fan of kids. I'm not awesome at parenting. Like, if you would see me with my own children, you wouldn't buy my book. I wrote a book, just happen to have a copy here on the table, called Kids These Days. And I tell you a lot about my theory about children and emotional regulation. But if you see me with my own personal children, you wouldn't buy the book, because we are so much better with other people's children. We are so much better when we are in this place of emotional regulation. And emotional regulation means how not to lose your friggin' mind. So when I ask any parent what they want for their child, if I were to ask you, you and I were sitting here having coffee this morning, I would say, what is the one thing that you want for your child? What is the one thing, if you had a wish for them, what is it? And everybody says this to me: I just want them to be happy. Which is really lofty and lovely. But when I ask other parents, tell me more about that, they say, okay, a few more things. I'd like them to do well in school. I'd like them to make friends. And I would love them to be kind. I'd love them to give back in the world somehow. Cool. That's really nice of you, mama. It's really nice of you, dad. Your child can't do any of those things if they do not learn the skill of emotional regulation. They are not born with how to stay calm. You have to show them. You cannot tell them. And in fact, when you bring them home from the hospital, they only have three basic ways: fight, flight, and freeze, to show us what they need. But basically what they do a lot is lose their friggin' mind. And our job as parents is to respond to them by regulating them. If I were to put a dysregulated infant in your arms, you are wired for connection. You would do this, instinctually, even if you don't have a lot of experience with infants. When I watched my husband hang on to our baby for the first time, I was like, wow. And he did his very best to try to soothe him, right? Asher's head was in his armpit, but he was doing this, And we're wired to connect and co-regulate emotion. The only way we teach our babies how to regulate emotion is we show them, we can't tell them. And when we do it over and over again, we put their prefrontal cortex back on again and again and again by showing them. They start to develop neural pathways, as Dr. Wayne was talking about, that sort of connect the prefrontal cortex on. And we need to give them access to those neural pathways so that when we're not there to help them co-regulate, they have access to them. Our biggest job, Ram Dass says this: we are all just here walking each other home. Our biggest job is to walk our babies home again and again and again through emotional dysregulation. The more times I do that in my child's physical presence, the less somebody has to do that when I'm not there. Okay. So when I put that prefrontal cortex on, I'm doing my very best. Here's the issue. I am at my best when my prefrontal cortex is on, when I'm regulated, when I can use my words and I can take deep breaths. Then I have access to everything I know as a parent. When you are regulated, moms and dads, you are phenomenal. You are phenomenal. I've assessed and treated over 1,000 kids in this country, and I have never, not one time, met a bad kid. I have also never one time, and I've worked with kids who've been apprehended and, parents who have made massive mistakes with their babies. I've never, not one time, met a parent who wasn't crazy about their child. And when they were regulated, they have every skill they needed to raise a healthy, happy human. And I think what's really matters the most is, as a child psychologist, I'm rarely worried about kids. I am much more concerned about the people who hold them. And I would spend so much more time and effort looking after communities just like this to say, how do we walk each other through crisis and hard times so that we can stay as connected and regulated as we can? And when we're in this time of dysregulation, we don't know who's going to lose their job or who's going to die or what's going to happen. Emotional regulation becomes the most important thing on the planet to focus on. So when we flip our lids or lose our minds, we lose access to everything that we know to be true. And you know this, when you're regulated, what our babies need is things like eye contact. The tone of voice becomes important. The quickest way to get a lid back on for you and me and everybody else is to take a drink of water or have a snack. And that flies in the face of all behavioral reason, because you shouldn't reward kids who are just losing their mind. You shouldn't say, let's come and have it. Come here. Let's get some juice. Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink of water. And then you teach. It is not if you're going to have hard conversations with your children or give feedback or get them to comply or use their words. It's not if you're going to have those discussions, it's when. And you cannot teach, you cannot effectively consequence a kid who is emotionally dysregulated, because they cannot learn. Not because they don't want to, not because they're a psychopathic serial killer or they got the bad genes from the dad and you shouldn't have married their dad because, you know, that's the problem. Every one of our babies are amazing, most amazing when they're regulated. Here's the issue. You can only learn emotional regulation when you get dysregulated first. Their job is to lose their friggin' minds. Our job as big people is to walk them home, which is why we need a community to do this process, because usually we're better with other people's children. And in this time of a global pandemic, what I really want you to think about is how you stay connected to the village, how you keep your kids connected to the village. If you're struggling with your adolescents, if you're struggling with your people, I really want you to think about, call your educators, your teachers who have their heart, their hockey coaches, their basketball coaches, and say, you know, I'm really concerned about my boy. Would you just give him a call today? Can you reach out and give him an email? Because normally our babies would see, you know, of course, their teachers and their coaches. How do we create a village, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles, to walk each other home in this process? I'm sending video messages to my nieces and nephews every chance I get. There's a big difference between, I don't want you to phone. If you can ever get a chance to send a video message or a FaceTime, I want you to do it, particularly in this time of disconnect, because these eyes are the window to the soul. And there is not a single culture on this planet that doesn't co-regulate with eye contact. We socially reference by eye contact. We know how we stand in other people's presence like this. So even if you are isolated by yourself, I want you to do a lot of video connections. I want you to do the very best you can to stay connected in this community until we can hug again. And if there's anything I want to leave you with, it's this. We're wired for this, team. And it's, you know, situations like this when, you know, Connie creates this kind of community. You can join our, you know, Wayne has a community, Sarah. I'm happy. Every morning I'm jumping on at 8 a.m. We have the most phenomenal community. Surround yourself with people who remind you how amazing you are. And we'll get through this stronger than ever. I believe that from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my heart.
Man, hands up for Dr. Jody. Bring it. What?
You matter, you matter, you matter.
You matter. Oh, so good. You know what I really love about you, Jody, is that you take probably all your PhD knowledge and you bring it down to real life, and you remind us of what's really important. I am just honored and thrilled that you would join us today. Thank you for being brave yourself, showing up every single day. There's probably mornings you don't feel like showing up at 8 a.m., but you show up every morning for the community. And do
you know what's really critical is that it's my mental health that is just benefiting from it. When I show up with people in this community who are supportive and amazing, I mean, we're just walking each other home, Connie. Yeah. Right. So I'm just as proud of this community and I would do it every day for the rest of my life, to the best of my capacity, because it's amazing to me.
Oh, that's great. Well, anyone who wants to check her out, if you haven't heard of Dr. Jody, it's at Dr. Jody Carrington. It's pretty simple. You've made it simple for people to find you. And so thank you so much for being here.
Yes. And good luck with the book. Everybody buy Connie's book. It's going to be amazing. That's what we need. More of this amazing words in the world. Follow all of us. We have amazing communities we'd love for you to be a part of.